Hello everyone, my name is Xiang Lei. Today I want to introduce the evolution of voting rights for women in the United States. This lecture is divided into three parts. At first, I will narrate the background of this suffrage. You know, voting is power, and if you don't vote, you have no say in laws that may directly affect you. So voting rights are important for everyone. Firstly, the background of this suffrage is in the 19th century, people only who were white, male, and owned property qualified to vote. Women couldn't vote and they had fewer and fewer rights. The abolitionist movement begins around the early 1930s. From this movement, women learned to speak in public and become accepted for speaking in the public. They had conventions and they had abolitionist newspapers. The women's rights movement grows out largely of the anti-slavery movement. This movement's topic is Are humans equal? Yes, we are equal. The result of this movement is that one woman went to London to attend the World Anti-Slavery Convention. The men there made the woman sit in the back. And secondly, I wanted to introduce the Seneca Falls Convention. The Seneca Falls Convention took place over 2 days in the July 1848. The convention adopted a set of resolutions written by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Stanton was a writer and housewife who wrote the founding document of the suffragist movement in America. The Declaration of Sentiments is the first organized effort, a collective effort to say that women should go out and get the right to vote. At last, I wanted to talk about women's suffrage by timeline. In 1851, Elizabeth Cady Stanton met the woman who should become her partner in the struggle for women's suffrage, Susan B. Anthony, and for the next half-century, the two women would lead the fight for a woman's right to vote. In 1861, the women stopped fighting for equal rights while the nation fought the Civil War. After the war, the Constitution had to be changed so the nation could recover. Women would not benefit from the equal protection guarantee from the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Carrie Chapman Catt was one of the leaders of the movement for suffrage. Alice Poor was a leader of the National Woman's Party, and she believed in more direct action. The suffrage movement in Britain in the early 20th century was an incredibly militant movement. Alice Poor led a massive march from the U.S. Capitol to the White House on the day before the inauguration parade of President Woodrow Wilson. In World War I, Carrie Chapman Catt encouraged her followers to make the cause of the war their own. They worked in factory jobs left vacant by men who went overseas to fight. In 1919, 27 states had granted women the right to vote. On August 18, 1920, the Anthony Amendment became the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. It was unconstitutional to deny any citizen the vote because of her gender. The 19th Amendment was ratified on August 19, 1920. On August 26, 1920, three-quarters of the state legislators ratified the 19th Amendment. American women win full voting rights. In 1971, Congress made August 26 the date the amendment became official, Women's Equality Day. The influence of this event, first, in social field, women were able to attend college and to train for profession. And then women initiated new institutions. The women's suffrage movement allowed women to secure their place in society and take a closer step to complete equality amongst the people of America. In economic field, firstly, women's economic roles increased in society since there were more educational opportunities for women, which led more and more women to sense their potential for meaningful professional careers. Furthermore, women's salaries increased, which was a huge success for women because it was such a big step from what it had been before. In political field, at the beginning, the resistance of giving women the right to vote began to burn down when the territorial legislature of Wyoming granted women the vote in 1869, and it was the first permanent suffrage law in the U.S. history. When the U.S. entered the war in 1917, a women's suffrage amendment was submitted in the House of Representatives. By 1919, it had passed both houses of Congress and was soon ratified by the necessary 36 states. Finally, the women of America achieved justice when the 19th Amendment, also called the Susan B. Anthony Amendment, became law in August 1920. When we turn to China, first, the Chinese women's liberation movement began in the late Qing dynasty. In the current research literature, researchers generally believe that China's feminist movement began in the late 19th and early 20th centuries with Liang Qichao, Jing Tianyi, and other male intellectuals agreeing on gender equality, freedom of marriage, women's right to education. But in front of these people, the women's liberation movement is part of the Enlightenment and nationalist movement, still centered on men, and Wang Qi calls it a male feminism, which is different from state feminism in the Republic of China after 1949. Since the late Qing dynasty, a group of female revolutionaries represented by Qiu Jing have participated in the revolution. Later, the National Revolution and the Northern Expedition, women were involved. The women's movement at that time demanded freedom of the marriage. The system pursues free love and marriage autonomy, strives for the equal rights of women and men to participate in politics, the inheritance of property, right to education, employment rights, criminal laws. Women's rights to fight for rights are defined as liberal women's rights. Secondly, the Mao Zedong era, women's liberation movement for men and women. The women's liberation movement in Mao Zedong era advocated equality between men and women. Women enjoyed the same political and social rights as men. Feminism was criticized and banned by Western bourgeois ideology. The master view of women began from the May 4th period. The main points of view include the root cause of women's oppression is private ownership, and thus part of class oppression. Women's participation in the socialist and communist revolution is the only correct way to achieve a complete liberation. The country and the party takes the basic national policy of equality between men and women. New China's legal policies, such as equality of men and women, equal pay for equal work, and autonomy in marriage, have narrowed the gender alienation of women. Women are not dependent, subordinate, and auxiliary roles of male, husband, son, and other male characters at that time, but they are a collective ethnic and avatar of this group. Compared with the women's liberation movements in the United States and China, I can think of this movement is international issues of social justice. Fairness involves treating everyone according to the universal ideas of equality and justice. These liberation movements also encouraged women to fight for their personal rights in any other places in this world. In the future, I'd like to learn more about American history and laws, especially about women. They all stay on the inequality of social status in many periods of history. When you wanted to learn more about the country, you need to concentrate on the females. Their power always symbolized the strength of one country.